Hello, everyone. We're back, and lots of action in the world of the stock market. And I'm your host, Ed Milewski, Midas Letter Live, and the inimitable Steve Misener is with us again. And we got lots to talk about. We got a interview with Nick Hofmeister. Sorry about that. Front Range Biosciences, still private. He's down in Boulder, Colorado. And we might hear from Cam Battley and our own James West calling in from out west. West from out west. And anyway, Steve, we're back here. I think the Dow was down about 650 at one point today. And now we've got lots of cross information on the Afria story we talked about yesterday. Where do you want to begin?
Well, I think we'll talk about the broader market. Well, let's talk about the broader markets because I think that overwhelms even the our favorable view of the cannabis sector, and then we can morph into that.
Sure.
I mean, 800-point day down in on the Dow is a big number, but in fact, it was around the same number back in 1987 in October '87 when we had the crash, mind you, from a much lower base.
That was 20% back then.
That was a big number.
That was a monster.
Yeah, that was a monster.
That was a.
Yes, I remember staring at the screen.
I was playing tennis and I told the guy what it was down, and he said, "You're shitting me."
Yeah,
anyway,
that was 30 years ago.
I know.
So, I mean, we become, I think, less sensitized to realize that 800's a big drop, but it's really not that much.
Two or three.
Not to take away, because we don't like seeing red and nobody likes giving it back. But some profit taking. We are in this seasonal weak point of the market. I think today, though, it was significant with all market watchers to see whether we were going to get, what's often called a euphemistic dead cat bounce, or some kind of rally, that enough selling had taken place and unwinding of say, the more aggressive positions. We did get a little 50-point bounce, I think, on the Dow. And then it rolled over again down, almost 700, I think.
I got a chart of the Dow up here right now. If we can put that chart up, I think the control guys can hear me. It should show it. It'll show us the range. Here we go. So look, we had yesterday we went from 26,450 to 25,600. Which is almost 900 points. Today, look at the range here, 24.9, 25.7. That's 800-point range. And now we're back to 25-ish, 25.1, 25.2 is what. I like seeing a big tail on the candle. We saw a big tail on the candle here. In fact, this one looks very similar to this one in terms of the bottom. Hopefully, it's a resistance or support level.
Again, we had talked about so I think there was some obvious disappointment that we didn't hold and get a bounce and a rally today out of the big sell-off yesterday. But again, it's been a long 10-year bull run. So
big run.
Unwinding some profits or some people moving to a more defensive position while it occurred quickly and aggressively yesterday. It may not be quite finished yet, so I think we have to accept that. But at some point, the valuation triggers will kick in, and you'll start hearing some strategists come out at some point and say there's better value here, and it's a chance to buy. And remember what we said about how cash, the yields, even though rates are on the rise, it's just incremental quarter points from almost zero. So there's no mileage in keeping your money in cash. So money goes to cash, we calm down, the heart palpitations go down, money comes out of the market fast, like we're seeing, that's fast, but it goes back in slowly when people catch their breath and they think, I'm going to miss the bargain. So money comes back in, but sell-offs are aggressive, and typically rising trend in a market is a slower, steadier, set of steps.
Well, just to your point, July, beginning of July, we sort of bottomed in here, and you can see a clear trend up until about a week ago, which it's mind-boggling. This is a 6-month chart, and that's July, and we've given back half of that gain in a couple days.
Yeah.
To your point, It grinds slowly, and then whoosh, the flush comes. And if you're not prepared,
and then I think what's also interesting is to say, well, where was the money going? I mean, they said that they had shedded, I'd read that they'd shedded $1 trillion off the bond markets. Again, I'm not sure if that was U.S. or global numbers, but I mean, the bond market's bigger than the stock market. And it was a huge number globally to think about the conservative money that's usually parked in bonds giving up that kind of capital value. They're still getting their coupon, and it's not impairment of capital value like a stock may get, but it means that it's still marked to market. It's a huge give back.
Oh, yeah.
So that means the money that was coming out of bonds wasn't going to stocks. Maybe initially it was, helping to drive the Dow higher and the other indices, but we've got the stocks going down. We've got bonds going down. Where's the money going? Well, it was going to the US dollar, it was going to cash. We talked about yesterday the redemption of international funds ending up in US dollars. But then interestingly, the first few days last week when we were getting that initial sell-off in the Dow, but it wasn't this dramatic
It wasn't hard to discern, really.
Yeah, but we were seeing that the Dow utilities were holding in well, and in fact up when the bond market was down. And typically it's argued that utility stocks trade like bonds, but they also have economic sensitivity. So we have a strong economy, but they're interest sensitives. So initially one could argue that people wanted to stay in the market. They held into the Dow utilities by trying to go more defensive from an equity perspective.
Right.
But now the utilities have cracked, which, I mean, it'd be surprising if they didn't. They're down, I think they're down about 2% today. But we have bonds down, we have we have stocks down, we have utilities down, and then we have the big move in gold today.
Well, that's what I was just going to hope you mentioned. So I'm going to put up the chart of the gold ETF here, which I know how to do. And we can see hopefully it doesn't look like much, but this is 6 months, okay? 6 months. And this is the bottom here. This one it got to I think about 11. Now this is the ETF, so the numbers aren't the same, but
I mean it generally tracks.
It tracks it, but.
And is that in the early summer or late spring? The bottom there.
This is from end of August.
So the bottom was in July, maybe, or in August.
August.
Okay.
Middle of August.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so but here we were looking like nothing's going on, and then little move yesterday, a little uptick, and today that's about $35.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's interesting that we didn't see the pop in gold yesterday. Dow's down 800, bond market shaves $1 trillion. Those are kind of fairly calamitous alarm bells going off and some buzzing red lights, to use your analogy.
You would have thought...
You thought that maybe gold is the safe haven. It's a big liquid security, really. If you treat it as a security, it's a liquid commodity market. It's also a currency. It has so many different kind of ways to categorize it. But it didn't move yesterday. First move is sell stuff, go to cash, then, okay, we're going to play. We played the utilities for a few days. We're not playing the bonds because the bonds are maybe arguably causing the backup in rates is what's causing the sell-off in stocks in part. So we don't want to go to bonds, which often benefit from money coming out of the stock market. We have money coming out of bonds, money coming out of stocks, not even sticking in the utilities. And then after a day, hey, gold looks cheap, and it has all these positive attributes, and it's liquid as hell. I can jump on the gold bandwagon.
Yeah.
So maybe gold is a defensive play now, safe haven.
Yeah.
We'll see what kind of legs it has, but I mean the gold stocks across the board, the big caps, Gold Corp, Barrick. I mean they're up 8-10% today.
Clearly, that's been, that trend in here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you broke right out of that.
Yeah, broke out of it. And I know one thing I've learned watching gold, and I'm a bit of a gold bug, I hate to admit it, because it can be very lonely. When the trend's entrenched, it seems to go on for quite a while. And we saw when it was up over there around 13, 14, 2 or 3 years ago, it had a big run. And then it rolled over, and I thought, this is going to be temporary, but it just keeps going and going. So maybe this is the beginning of a trend. And I'm not saying it is, but it's suggesting that the people are looking at gold differently all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, it's a reflection of the craziness, or at least the dramatic sell-off in stocks and bonds, and the search amongst big liquid investment pools. Where do we put the money? And also,
there's your picture of
the argument that we maybe don't want to be in cash, because cash doesn't pay us anything. So there's gold, kind of at a really low point in its cycle, perhaps.
So viewers, we saw gold up today, $30-35. It's not a big move on a percentage basis. However, Barrick, which is a big one, has already moved from the beginning of September. And look, and in some ways, it's amazing how these things predict these things, right? Like here's Barrick moving from $9.50-ish all the way up into $11, $12, and then it's almost looking like if you had it, you should sell it. But I don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
well, I mean,
that's just one example.
Barrick's, Barrick's biggest player. I mean, it's got lots of potential legs if one wants to play the gold sector. It's almost in a way, the default buy to play if you want to play the big.
Yeah. I don't know. I couldn't even tell you right now which the biggest. Is it gold? Is Goldcorp? It's either Goldcorp, Newmont, or.
I mean, no one's been paying attention much.
I know. So
I'd lay my bet on Barrick, but you know what? I could be wrong too. So I don't want to.
Well, it doesn't matter.
And but Goldcorp, Barrick, and they're the big names.
That drop. You went out of your mind. So here it is. Yeah. It's down. It's out. No one's paying attention.
The other key thing is that initially with a move like this is people want to not just go for the big names because they're liquid, and that's where big money can go to in a hurry, but they also want to go to gold producers that are actually producing bullion and maybe don't have a fully hedged book, meaning that they've pre-sold their book at a fixed price so that the company actually sells gold, produces it at a fixed price, sells it into the market, and benefits from the rise.
Yeah,
whereas many of the juniors are still building their mines, finding their deposits, and they're not actually producing gold. They may benefit from gold in the ground, but they are not actually generating revenue at this current time. So the move is always initially to the big boys because they're liquid and they actually are going to benefit from a spike in prices on the upside.
I'm just going to quickly put up the chart of the bond ETF just to.
Now, is this the Canadian or the U.S. one?
This is the TLT. This is the iShares 20-year Treasury bond. Looks like
that's
a U.S.
the U.S. one. Yeah.
Yep. So it looks like bonds have rallied a bit here.
Yes.
And yet we still saw the market drop sharply. So there's some safety play, right?
Yes, and again, money's getting out of an asset class, and the marginal player or the marginal hot money is saying, okay, well, what's a better deal? Well, bonds sold off. I need to take some bonds, or perhaps there's some short covering there. If people were betting against bonds, they got some of their score in. So you always have to remember that sometimes buying is short covering.
Yeah.
I mean, we know short covering on a squeeze can drive a security higher, but we also know that if the shorts in their call, whatever their timeline is, it's usually fairly short term. If their call's correct, then they're actually locking in profits and you get a bounce in that security.
Yeah, and whenever you get a steep move, like a major down move like this, I mean, there's always going to be a counter move. Mm-hmm. So we're seeing a counter move here. We don't know, obviously, I mean, anyway, it's interesting times. Let's change gears a bit.
Yep.
I interviewed a guy today, Nick Hofmeister. They're involved in something very interesting. It's still private. They're based in Colorado. Front Range Biosciences. It has to do with science and cloning, and he's going to tell us a great story.
And
hello, everyone. Welcome to Midas Letter Live. I'm Ed Milewski. We got a very interesting company with us today, and a gentleman here, Nick Hofmeister, who's the CFO. He's coming to us from Colorado, working. and Front Range Bioscience, which is a private company, and I see you just raised $10 million.
We're very happy about that result. We were on your show a little over a month ago.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And we were talking about that round then. We have since closed the round and made the announcement just about last week. And $10 million in the bank, ready to go, funded and closed, which gives us all the capital that we need to do the expansion plans over the next 2 years.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you have any of that money left, but that would be a joke. That would be a joke. Okay, so you got, it's a nice feeling, because I know in a small company, you struggle. You got to, you got to be a real steward and treat the money very, very seriously. So you got a little breathing room, but you shouldn't get flippant with it, right? You gotta. So
we take this very seriously. I've raised now more than about 260 million from various public and private sources for early stage startups. And this is really important money for us. We take it very seriously. Our investors from previous rounds, many of them joined this round, seeing what we did with the money that we raised previously, the milestones that we hit, the accomplishments we had as a company. Yeah. They were confident in what we were doing and put more money in. Well,
tell us about Front. Just tell us again about your main function. What do you propose to do? What's the value added? Why do we want to invest in Front Range when I assume you're going public at some point?
No plans to announce about that yet, but it is definitely on the radar.
Yeah, okay.
Front Range
tell us about your company.
It's an agricultural biotechnology company. So we translate existing agricultural technologies to cannabis, and now also the coffee space. So those technologies include things like tissue culture, what we call our clean stock program, which produces disease-free, pesticide-free, and certified true to type baby plants. And those plants go into grows. Currently, we're in Colorado and California, and we're working on expansions across the U.S. and into Canada.
Right. I don't know anything about this area, but just sounds to me that it sounds very high end. It sounds to me this would consume a lot of money in the laboratory area. Like, am I correct in that, or like? And
not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Yeah. Okay, that's the right answer because 10 million you might go through it quickly, and then you got to raise another 10 or 20 million. But anyway, so you're saying not necessarily.
I've worked on biotechnology companies for most of the last decade, startups, and in those startups, you can burn through biotech money very quickly in a startup. A piece of equipment could cost $1 million. For Front Range Biosciences, part of the reason that we wanted to form this company is that it's relying on agricultural biotechnology technologies. They've been developed and perfected over the past 30 years and needed to be translated into cannabis. So there was some R&D work to do that. We spent a couple of years and some of our early raised capital to create the process, but it doesn't involve a $1 million DNA sequencing machine, for example.
Right. Now I see you're the CFO, so I take it you have a degree in accounting. That's your training, correct?
I have an MBA. I went to MIT Sloan. Yes.
Okay, good. But you've also been in the bioscience space for 10 years or more.
Yeah, about 10 years now. I worked on algae biofuels, nutraceutical and pharmaceutical manufacturing from algae, all sorts of products.
Yeah. Okay. So how long? You said earlier, and I want to repeat this because this is important. And I've been in the investment business for, hard to believe, but more than 20 years, closer to 40. The bottom line is, like if you have to keep raising money, that's dilutive to existing shareholders. And you're saying this 10 million is going to keep you going for quite a while.
It will. So we budgeted for that 10 million to last for 2 years. We're already earning revenue as a company, and we have a lot more revenue in store for us over the next year or two.
That was my next question. Like, no revenues, raise more money. And I don't like to see more and more. So you got some revenues, and you're going to continue to build on that.
We got our first revenues in 2017, actually, just a year after starting our operations. And then we've had significant revenues this year in 2018. And this expansion capital, the $10 million raise, is to expand our operations in Colorado, California, and therefore expand our revenue.
Yeah, and and maybe you can answer this, and maybe you can't, because you're a private company. I understand that there's things you can say, or so I'm just going to throw this out. But do you see a point in the near future? I'm assuming, being a startup company, that are you burning money now, or are you breaking even, or can you talk about that?
Yeah, I can talk about it in really general terms, which is
sure.
We use this additional capital to allow for the expansion. So we are taking investor capital and putting it into larger facilities and particularly more personnel. So we're a people-driven business in the end of the day, and we raise that additional money so that we could grow faster than our organic growth would allow us to do on it.
How many employees do you have now?
We are at 30 employees in Colorado and California.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
a little
interesting.
After more than 2 years of operations in total. We started August 2016.
And how many people did you have in August 2016? 3 or 4?
3, yes.
Yeah, wow. Well, that's impressive. So you're generating. You know what? A lot of companies in this cannabis space aren't generating revenue right now. Well, maybe you can't sell product until it becomes legal, and it's not becoming legal till next week. But yeah, interesting. So now I see you got a couple of relationships here. Faith and Family Farms. Maybe talk about that for a bit.
Sure. Faith and Family Farms is a decades-long family farm in Salinas, California, so part of the Central Coast agricultural region there. And we made a partnership with them, I guess about 6 months ago is when we announced it. And that partnership is to grow marijuana under their license in California. So it was a way for us to get started early in the California marijuana market and begin our expansion into what will be the most important marijuana market in the U.S.
Right. Now tell me, I just want to be clear because I'm not sure. Are you a Calgary company, or are you a American company?
We're an American company, so we're actually based in Boulder, Colorado, or Lafayette, which is in between Boulder and Denver.
Maybe I got confused here. So you're not tied to Calgary at all.
Nope, not right now.
I'm sorry, viewers, for making that mistake, and we've got that straightened out. And okay, so the other question was, and it just escapes my pea brain. Now you've also partnered with Fringe Coffee in California.
Yes, that was a really interesting partnership for us. So Fringe Coffee is associated with a 30-year-old organic farm and breeding facility in Santa Barbara, California. And Fringe has spent the last 15 years developing new varietals of coffee that grow in non-traditional coffee growing regions. So this would be areas like Southern California. So they've opened up California to be a coffee producing market. And that is an interesting thing in its own right. But it was also interesting that through our connection with the University of California, Davis, we got introduced to them. We developed a tissue culture protocol and program, our clean stock program for coffee. And so we're now producing our first plants to be delivered to Fringe under a contract that we signed with them earlier this year.
And this is coffee, right? This has got nothing to do with cannabis, correct?
Nothing to do with cannabis. It is coffee, as in the thing you drink in the morning.
Yeah. So you're really, this is good that you're taking your technology and your expertise and you're expanding it into markets that may be connected, may not be connected, but certainly. Yeah,
it was very interesting for us.
Sorry, I keep losing this thing.
Yeah, no worries. It was one of the first examples of translations that we saw from the cannabis industry to another part of agriculture. Normally, you think of technology moving from the more developed pieces back to a new market like cannabis. But we had a great article in Wired, partnered with Fringe to get that done. And it talked a lot about how this technology we've created for cannabis was now applicable to an existing market, a $100 billion commodity like coffee.
Yeah, wow. Well, I like what I'm hearing, Nick. We're going to leave it at that, but we hopefully we can come back to you as you develop here, and maybe Just one final thing. Was the money raised in the U.S. basically? Was this obviously it was a U.S. Yeah, okay.
Yep, it was a U.S. capital raise, you bet.
Okay, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in. What Front Range Biosciences is doing, I got to tell you, Steve, I like this company. I think they're going to go places. They've got some good relationships, and they're involved with a coffee company. Anyway, so let's maybe touch upon Afria and what transpired with
in the big
Altria.
Big market sell-off yesterday on the broader markets, and even the cannabis stocks were sinking in alignment with general market sentiment. And then there were some rumors published in some of the mainstream media, actually published.
Yes.
At around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and that created a big surge of interest and a turnaround in the Afria stock.
Afria was up 15% at one point.
Turning it from a sell-off to an actual plus day.
Sure.
On huge volume.
Right.
Tens of millions of shares. And at the end of the day, the company felt that they should try to clarify the rumor and innuendo that was going down. I think you might have the
well, look at this. This was in the paper.
No. This is the company issued its own press release, I think in response to discussions with IROC about it, if I'm correct. It said Afria responded to the rumors by saying, quote, "They engage in discussions with potential strategic partners and or investors from time to time. The company notes that there is no agreement, understanding, or arrangement in place with a potential investor at this time," unquote. So, I mean, that says no comment. And but even today, the stock's been holding in very well. So people can speculate, but at this point, there's nothing to announce, and it's an interesting speculation.
I think we're going to have a surprise appearance by, lo and behold, from the West. Looks like we've got James West and Cam Battley.
Hey, Ed. Hey, Stevie. Can you guys hear us okay?
Yes, we can.
I don't recognize you without your hair.
Well, how about that? My hair is here under there. Now, I want to say hello to everybody first of all, and I'm here with my good friend Cam Battley, Chief Corporate Officer of Aurora Cannabis. That's right. As if there was any need for that, but we're standing here in Aurora Sky's brand new ultra high tech facility, and I got to tell you, I have never seen anything like this in all my days of cannabis site visits. So
there is nothing like this.
There is nothing like this.
Nothing in the world.
You guys invented this.
We invented it.
Yeah. So this is part of you. You were talking earlier about your relationship with Thomas
Larson.
From Larson Greenhouses, and you ended up acquiring Thomas because you found yourself.
He was the best in the world. We were creating new intellectual property together. We had no choice. We had to acquire him or kill him, and we decided to acquire him instead.
He's probably happy about that.
Yes, and we are too.
So now, what is it we're growing here? Is this like camphor or like tomatoes or
something way more valuable than that? So this is one of the 17 flower rooms at Aurora Sky. Each of them is identical. Each of them is 34,000 square feet, and altogether they produce over 100,000 kilograms of high-quality cannabis per year, and they do it consistently, and they do it at the highest production efficiency in the world, and they do it without crop loss.
How much of that do I get?
How much you got in your wallet?
Edward, we're going to need to crank up the money-making machine here again. So Cam, tell me, how long did this thing take to build? How much did it cost? And how does the return on investment work for the economics of Aurora?
The return on investment is insane. It's about 3 months at full capacity. The time to build from the time we actually started construction on the physical facility was about 14 months. And the great thing is, and that's pretty fast for a facility like this, which is completely different from everything else out there. Remember, this is not a greenhouse. This is not a greenhouse. This is an indoor facility with a glass roof that allows us to harness the power of the sun. We also have supplemental lighting. And we're able to ensure the optimal level of light on the canopy at all times. But the beauty of the closed system and by the way, we've got MERV level 14 air filtration here, so you're currently breathing probably the cleanest air you've ever breathed. is that we control all the environmental variables, all of them, from the lighting to the temperature to the humidity to the nutrients. And that's part of why we get the highest production efficiency in the world out of these facilities. It's also why it's so predictable, so regular, so consistent, and it's also why we don't lose crops. We're not open to the air, so nasty things can't get in.
Right. So I want to address some of the criticisms that have been levied at Aurora from the sort of cannabis universe that we are now able to say in no uncertain terms are any of them, not a single one is valid. Some people have said, oh, it's way too close to the airport. The fumes from the airlines are going to make it impossible to grow cannabis. Clearly, not true.
So that one I really love because it was actually spread by, I'm told, by numerous analysts. It was spread by one or more of our competitors. As you can see, that can't be the case. This is, we have the most powerful HVAC system here that anybody's ever seen. And the level of air filtration is like that of a level 4 lab practically.
Sure.
So clearly you don't have any contaminated cannabis. It's beautiful, happy, healthy cannabis plants.
And we've been in multiple rooms, and there is all these rumors that, oh, they can only show you one room, they'll never take you through the whole place. We've been through the whole place. We've been in almost every room. I don't know if it's 17, but I actually stood and looked over the shoulder of the security office, which will be added to this video as B-roll shortly. And we were able to see all 17 rooms are very productive, very active, and it doesn't look like there's any spare room to do anything else here except grow cannabis.
No, and the beauty is, this is the first of a whole class of Sky Class facilities, right? So we have tested all the technologies here. The next in the Sky Class facilities will be Aurora Sun in Medicine Hat, Canada's sunniest city. And it will be more advanced than Aurora Sky. It'll also be 50% larger, so 1.2 million square feet, producing 150,000 kilograms of high-quality cannabis per year.
Wow.
And so each time we build one of these Sky Class facilities, we take everything that we learned in the previous one, we apply it, and then we add additional technology. And for Aurora Sky itself, we actually added about $15 million of additional technology to the facility while we were building it.
Okay, very cool. And the other thing that I heard a lot of people suggesting is that the fact that you're in Edmonton and way up north, and where it gets dark earlier in the winter, is going to impact your economics so negatively that you'll never make money.
So we could drop one of these Sky Class facilities into an equatorial region. We could drop it into Scandinavia. And oh, by the way, we are actually dropping one into Scandinavia. We're building another Sky Class facility, Aurora Nordic, in Odense, Denmark.
Here's the beer divorce more.
Okay, I think so.
No, I spoke Nordic.
That's how Scandinavian people are going to show up at your door and beat the shit
Ah, no, they like it. They love it. They love it. They love it when I do bad accents.
So what we like about this is, first of all, it's exciting to invent this brand new technology. But we think that we're creating the future of cannabis cultivation. It's part of why we brought Thomas Larson on board. It's part of why we are so heavily into integrating technology into everything we do, from the cultivation itself to the harvest. Earlier we showed you one of the robotic cranes that we use to pick up entire tables of cannabis and bring them into the central corridor, where they move on a conveyor to the harvest areas. That's the way we do things. We want to bring as much efficiency to this process as possible. And measure of at our first production facility, Aurora Mountain, an hour north of Calgary, which at the time was the first purpose-built cannabis production facility in the world. We had 125 people working there. That's a 55,000 square foot facility. Aurora Sky is 20 times the size in terms of production, 17 times the size physically, and we only have 400 people working here. If you were to try and hire the number of people required to harvest a facility of this size in a traditional greenhouse, you'd be looking at well over 1,000 people required, maybe 1,500. So that's our fetish, if you like, to take cannabis production and improve every aspect of it. So, if you were to start fresh in producing cannabis and processing cannabis, how would you do it optimally? That's what we're trying to do. And it's working. And it's working great.
Okay, so your whole game plan here is to so automate the entire process. The exposure to pathogens, and as a result of lots of people, is eliminated. The high cost of physical labor is reduced drastically. And what other efficiencies of scale are you realizing by building such monstrous facilities?
Well, let's actually go back to one of the things you said. We've taken people out of the cultivation rooms, out of the flower rooms. And if you take a look at the way our rooms are set up, there are no walkways. So that allows us to do a couple of things. One, we reclaim that space as table space or canopy space to actually grow plants. You don't have to have people walking up and down. But the second thing is we remove human beings who are the most common vector for the transmission of contaminants. We remove them from the equation. And that leads us to even greater production efficiency. And we will continue to advance that as much as possible with continuous improvement. What we're going to do is take this globally, and we're already operating in 18 countries worldwide. We have production facilities in Canada and Europe now, and we're also building a mini version of the Sky Class facility for our partner Ken Group in Australia. We can put these facilities anywhere in the world, and that is the beauty of them. What we've done is we've created what I think is the model that is most replicable and scalable on a worldwide basis for consistent cannabis production and economical cannabis production. So these Sky Class facilities are designed to produce cannabis for well under $1 per gram. So we're already an efficient and economical producer. This will create a new standard.
Sure. So how much cannabis will you produce in 2019?
Okay, so that's going to change through the year. So by the beginning of 2019, we think that we'll be on an annual run rate of about 160,000 kilograms per year. But because we're adding capacity through the year, by the end of 2019, that number will be significantly larger as we add production from Aurora Sun, for example, in Medicine Hat. It's a bit of a moving target, if you like, but what I can tell you is that by the beginning of 2020, we're targeting having in excess of 500,000 kilograms or 500 million grams of cannabis production per year on an annual run rate.
At what point in the future timeline does Aurora become cash flow positive and stop needing to go to the markets to raise capital?
Those are two different questions. When do we want to stop going to the markets to raise capital versus where we become cash flow positive? We're very, very close to that. And I've been thinking in my mind that we get there right around the end of this year. I think that's still fairly realistic, but we'll know for sure by the end of that year, of this year, calendar year 2018. And if it's not by the end of this calendar year, then it'll be soon into calendar 2019. We're getting awfully close right now, and we do have to wait and see, what the demand and what sales are like in the consumer system to be able to say that with high level of confidence.
Sure.
That's why I'm hedging.
Okay, so the reason I conflated those two separate issues is because the question for me is,
want to raise some money?
How much? Well, happily, the question for me is, how much more money are you going to need to realize your full capex plan for the whole global build-up?
So all of our facilities are funded. That's taken care of. But there are other questions as well, and that is how fast do we want to expand on a worldwide basis? Into how many markets and how soon on what timeline? And so those are some of the things that we're thinking about right now. We know that we're going to be generating a lot of free cash flow early in 2019. Will that be sufficient for all of our needs? It depends on how our strategy evolves. And part of that is in response to the speed at which new medical cannabis markets and ultimately consumer cannabis markets are opening up. One good example of that is the United Kingdom. Nobody was planning on the United Kingdom having a medical cannabis system at the beginning of 2018. Then the stories of a couple of very sick little boys with epilepsy changed that very, very quickly. And now it looks like the United Kingdom will become a very important medical cannabis market in a short period of time. We will probably find the same ethic will apply to a number of other markets that people hadn't been suspecting in the past. And frankly, I think that we can help that process by going into those countries, explaining what the system is all about, how legitimate medical cannabis is, and showing them a track record of multiple years of operating in full compliance with Health Canada regulations, and bringing them over here to actually see it with their own eyes.
Are you concerned at all about a risk whereby nations overseas want to embrace more of the economic opportunity inherent in cannabis and are going to move to try to squeeze out those pesky Canadians who are now globally dominant?
We anticipate that. Countries around the world are going to want to participate in the creation of this new industry and the economic benefits, the new investment, the economic development spin-off benefits, the new employment and the innovation. Absolutely. So our answer to that is, first of all, we've got the expertise, we've got the capital, we've got the reputation, the credibility to be able to do it, but we also want to be your domestic producer. So we are going to find ways, whether it be sole ownership, joint venture, partnerships, to be involved in multiple jurisdictions around the world. We're going to be producing cannabis around the world. That's the plan.
Amazing. Now, Steve Misener, I'm assuming that you're just over brimming with questions there, and Suzanne in the control room. If you see any intelligent questions in the audience,
Only the intelligent questions.
Please send them our way. But Steve, did you have any questions about the economics surrounding this?
Are we on?
I think they've got
Yeah, we're
us muted.
Yeah, we're muted. We're a couple of mutes.
Are
No, you're on.
that.
We can hear you.
I didn't mean that.
we live now?
We're mutations.
No, sorry, we're back on.
We
now.
heard
Over to you, Steve.
We're back on now.
We heard
Back to you, Ed.
We heard all the nasty things.
Well, just
about
a
James.
general.
He's back.
This is your Sky facility. Very, very impressive what we've heard so far. You have a mountain facility as well. Would you like to share with the audience just the bigger picture of some of your other facilities?
All right, I will list the facilities, hoping not to leave any out, and perhaps one of my colleagues off camera could help me out if I fall down. So
That'll be you, Heather.
we're on our way to 11 facilities. We've got 8 operating right now in Canada and Europe. It started up with the mountain facility north of Calgary, Aurora Mountain. This is Aurora Sky, obviously. Aurora Sun, we're constructing in Medicine Hat. That's 3 in Alberta. Then we have the Canamed facility in Saskatoon. That's all for Saskatchewan. On to Ontario, we have 2 operating facilities that used to be MedRelief. We have them in Markham and Bradford. On to Quebec, we have 2 facilities there, Aurora V and Aurora O. In Lachute. Aurora V is in Pointe Claire on the island of Montreal. Then help me out if I missed any here so far in Canada. Okay, good. And then on to Europe, we're building 2 facilities in Denmark. One, in order to help us hit the ground running, is a 100,000 square foot retrofitted greenhouse. The big one, of course, is Aurora Nordic. And that's the 1 million square foot Sky class facility that we're building in Odense. And I think that captures all of them, with the exception of ICC Labs. Now, ICC in Latin America is an acquisition that's underway. We haven't closed it yet, but once we have closed that, there'll be additional capacity in Uruguay and Colombia to add to the Aurora family. You know, I really do need that cheat sheet we've talked about.
Sure. And if viewers want to go check out our coverage of ICC Labs, back then it was called International Cannabis Corp. We interviewed the CEO, Guillermo Del Monte. I do. I love to speak. It is. Anyways, Guillermo's moved on. The new crew is now Aurora. So that has great implications for the significance of that. Why? Because Uruguay, due to its geographical positioning, can grow a lot of cannabis outdoors. And in the hemp universe,
cannabis, hemp, we're in both businesses in a very, very big way. Both of them are valuable. Both of them will be huge global industries. We love both of them.
And so let's talk a bit about some of the acquisitions that we haven't touched on, because to really fully grasp the Aurora sort of matrix of companies takes a little bit of thought and understanding. But so we saw a press release from the liquor company that you guys acquired 20% of.
Alcanna, 25.
Alcanna.
Yep.
And they were going to roll out 14 stores and call them Aurora, but they had to change the name to Nova Cannabis.
Well, we have to keep the regulators happy. And
Right.
in Alberta, they said, don't call it Aurora, call it something else. So it'll look like Aurora, it'll sound like Aurora, it'll be, we'll be supplying, among other companies, we'll be supplying our cannabis products to them, but it'll be called Nova. Yeah, and they did very well. Alcanna did very well. That management team deserves a lot of credit. They ended up, of the first 17 licenses in Alberta announced by the AGLC, they got 5, and in excellent locations. So they're doing a really, really good job getting ramped up very quickly. Of course, they have their eye on Ontario as well. And I have full confidence that they're going to do exceedingly well in Ontario.
Okay, so just let's wrap it up here. What are the top 5 value catalysts that investors can watch for in 2019? That are
2019? Sure. Additional capacity, obviously. New product forms. Remember that, and according to the legislation, the Cannabis Act, the new regulations that allow for concentrates and edibles have to be in place by 1 year post legalization. That doesn't mean that it will be 1 year post legalization. So I think that we're going to see some new product forms permitted under regulation from Health Canada. Perhaps things like vape pens, which are a major segment of the market in the Canadian gray market and in the states that have legalized cannabis for consumer use. I think we'll see things like vape pens come onto the market earlier in 2019, and that'll be huge. If you've seen those vape pens, I know you have.
I haven't said, I just don't look at them. I mean, I've tried them.
Well, so they operate well depending on the technology,
Right.
and they're very discreet. You can stick them in your pocket, your purse. They make nothing but vapor. It's an additional segment of the market that we anticipate being in, and all of these additional segments will be rolling out over the course of 2019. So more production, new product forms, new markets opening up. For us, that's a big one because we are present in Europe in a very big way. A week and a half ago, our senior management team from Canada, we huddled with our European management team in Berlin for a weekend, and we are very excited about what's happening there. Additional markets cascading open. We've got a very, very talented team over there.
Okay.
And I think we're going to keep killing it in Europe, where I think at the moment it's fair to say that we're the market leader.
Okay, quick question from a viewer. Is Aurora planning to go into the performance beverages space?
Infused beverages.
Infused beverages.
Absolutely. We've indicated that some time ago that we do it. We intend on being in every single segment of the market.
Okay, second part of that question. How do you deal with the idea that cannabinoids are unstable in the presence of fats and acids in foodstuffs and beverages?
There are technologies available that allow the cannabinoids to be extracted and stay in solution in the beverages. And in addition, importantly as well, to have rapid onset of action. So you're not waiting an hour or two, which is typically the case when you ingest cannabis. And then also a shorter duration of action, which makes it more competitive with a beer or a glass of wine.
Aurora has that already taken care of.
I have said all I want to say today.
Okay. All right.
Remember, we don't talk about business development until it's
Right. I tried to put him on the spot. Damn. Foiled again. Anyways, Ed, Steve, thanks for letting us jump onto your show today. I'm going to be back there tomorrow. Cam's going to be back repeatedly throughout 2018 and 19, and we'll see you guys soon.
Quick short question. What's the ceiling made out of? From here it looks like glass.
Yes, that's exactly right. What we've got here is an indoor facility with a glass roof, and it's distinguished from greenhouses because it's a closed system, so nasty things can't come in, and we absolutely completely control all the environmental variables. And that glass, by the way, is very, very special. It diffuses all the light, so that on a very sunny day, if we were standing here and the sun was directly above, if you stuck your hand out, you would not see a distinct shadow on the floor. It diffuses the light and spreads it out across the entire canopy, so that we have equal measures of absolutely all the good things that cannabis needs to be happy and healthy, from the light to the nutrients and the irrigation, the water. Everything is absolutely equal, even the airflow. No microclimates.
Thanks a lot.
Got any other smart questions, Milewski?
Bring back some samples.
Okay. Yeah, I've been stuffing my pockets over here.
After next week, that might be possible. Today, not yet.
All right, guys. We'll see you guys soon. Thanks very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, wow, what a facility.
It's
State
really,
of the art.
it's very, very incredible.
Yeah, so you know what, let's maybe just segue into what some of the specific companies did today.
Yeah.
And we touched upon briefly, but I'll put up a chart of Afria because it had a big day yesterday.
And a strong stance today as well.
I'm gonna there I got it right there. So let's see. I'm just going to okay. So this is a 6-month chart. I'm going to put up a 3-month chart, and you can see how we moved from the 875 level there back in the middle of August.
Yeah.
Up to almost $22.
Yeah.
Came off, and here we are. Close to $20.
Yeah.
So there's a big one. Now let's just put up.
I think it's very significant that Afria is holding on to its powerful gains from yesterday.
Yeah.
Yesterday was a terrible day in the broader stock markets, and it was Afria almost, I think single-handedly, based on rumor that they have now
Right.
Formally dismissed at the current time, but it was that turn at 2 o'clock when the cannabis sector was under so much pressure, as it is a little more speculative in the future to support the fundamentals. But I mean, the future looks so rosy in the sector that many investors want to play. But it was single-handedly the interest and excitement about the potential of what might happen with Aphria that turned the whole sector around at 2 o'clock late in the day.
And a shitty day.
In a terrible day in the market, an 800-point down day. And the fact that it's hanging in today and continuing to provide that leadership has created, I think, a lot of confidence and support, because really the cannabis stocks, while some are showing a little bit of red today, they're really not down much. And again, it's been another weak day in the markets, in the broader markets.
Now there's Aurora. We just spoke to Cam and James in Edmonton, but again, same bottoming in the middle of middle of August.
Yeah.
Look at that move.
Yeah, and today down only 50 cents. I mean, that's like a 3+% move again on a weekday in the market, and you know, the stock's trading near that upper range and holding in solidly, and again, the volumes on a lot of these bigger names have been very strong. So that means there's significant buying interest on the other side. Canopy's going across our ticker here, our internal Midas Letter ticker, and only down $1.50, which is not even noteworthy on a $61 stock. So we have seen for some of the companies, there's been some profit taking across the board, but people are going to do that because when markets are weak, people want to get some cash. There is some profit taking, and there's been not just a powerful run in the canopy, not canopy, but in the cannabis stocks in the last 3-5 years, some tremendous returns. But even since August, as you pointed out on several charts, Ed, that there's been a big bounce heading into this October period and out of the quiet period. So when you have weak broader markets, profit taking is normal, and I think it's impressive how well the cannabis sector is holding up, meaning there are strong bids underneath these volumes.
Yeah, I just gone to the Midas Letter Live webpage, and I got the 4 indices up here, and they're going to come up here in a minute, but so we can see the big one's down 1.5%. The Midas Letter small cap is down 2.9%. Midas Letter, et cetera, et cetera. So they're down slightly, have had big runs, but again, pretty crappy day all in all.
Yes.
Gold being the bright light
that
I can see. I don't know of many others. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to take a look at Tilray again. We can do that.
I mean, I'm always going to make the analogy that since the actual hemp and cannabis plant is a very resilient plant when you grow it, it's amazing how the cannabis shares in the sector, I think, are showing very similar attributes and resilience.
Be curious to see what happens next Wednesday. If we get, I mean, nothing's going to happen, I don't think, magically on Wednesday, but the reality is it's real now.
But I've been trying to get some flavor for that from various Bay Street veterans and professionals, and a wise trader that I know. He told me today that he believes that and we talked about some of this yesterday, that maybe some of the institutional players like the banks who have not been active really, I think it's been BMO and Bank of Montreal and CIBC, if I'm correct, that have been leading earlier players, and they were late kind of getting in, but they've been big players in 2018. But some of the other banks have not been in, and think of the vast retail networks that they have.
Right.
And they have the whole investment banking side, and they're watching these stocks do what they do. There's mergers, there's takeovers, there's RTOs, there's IPOs, there's US listings. And there's some, legitimately large fees associated with the big investment banking. It's got to be driving some of these players a little wild to think that they're not able to participate. So in that sense, this trader suggests to me that he believes that come next week when it's all legal in Canada, that we could see more banks and more both banks as financiers and investment banking activity enter the market, and also institutional investors. So that could provide some fresh, some fresh legs to this sector.
Well, you know what? It's been wild. I mean, I've had many opportunities over the last year and a half to look at things, and I always thought it was too late. I hate to admit it, but there's been some spectacular gains in the last year, like huge.
Sure.
We talked about huge. I mean, look at that.
Yeah.
It's capped at $1 billion.
Yeah.
And I see they're going to have a big event at the former Kraft plant, which is in Coburg.
I think they already had the ribbon cutting. I think they had it
Was
this
that
week.
Was it yesterday?
I think it was this week. Yeah, a couple of days ago. I may be wrong, but I think they had the ribbon cutting. I think the mayor was there and senior management and some of the underwriters. So I think that was a big again, big news. Just like these facilities, and it's interesting when you think of it that the cannabis sector is providing real jobs, especially in some areas where former factories are closed and those jobs are lost. I think that's kind of can be seen as a broader picture. Good news story. I mean, when we saw the Aurora, as Cam went through the whole listings of facilities, it's a crisscross of Canada, east to west, and some in some medium-sized communities where these jobs can have impact, and they're going to grow from there. I think that's an impressive story as well. It's not just centralized in one region or one location.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. Well, look, it's almost 10 after 4. We've had a great week here with Steve. Are you back tomorrow, Steve? Or I think James is coming back tomorrow.
James is back tomorrow.
James back tomorrow. Markets are hopefully this is not a historic week, but it looks like it's a historic week so far. We'll be back tomorrow.
I think the market will find some bids here.
Now,
Friday, keep in mind as I close, Friday is not always a great day because people, when they are a little, they're a little testy in the market or they're a little uncertain, that sometimes the joke is that traders say that they're long-term investors if they own it overnight.
If they make it to settlement.
But think about the fact that Friday means there's a weekend involved. It's not a long weekend in Canada or the U.S., but it's still a weekend, and when you have this kind of uncertainty. So my general guess is I don't think there's going to be a huge rally in the market tomorrow in the broader markets because it's a Friday.
Now, we were talking earlier, and the Dow is down 350. As we speak, it's now down 550.
Well, it's closed now, right?
It's closed now, but it closed down 550.
Yeah.
But that was 200 points or 150 points off the low.
Yes.
Anyway, you know what? It is what it is. It's Miller time. Or marijuana. Next week it'll be marijuana time. Anyway, that's it from Midas Letter Live. Steve Misener, Ed Milewski. So long, folks. See you next week. See you tomorrow.